Hello, this is Chloe here at Inner Whispers. Today I'll be doing a video review of the Silenus Tarot. This lovely self-published deck was created by Mike Indovina. It comes in a little plastic case with what is actually a very small little white book. I'll open this up so you can see. It's really just one sheet with print on both sides. However, the meanings that are offered, although short, are actually very useful, I think. They give enough information for someone to be able to then go up and find out more about the particular myth that they relate to, should they so want. All of the cards of this deck are connected to Greek mythology. I really like this deck. The cards are very vibrant and colourful. They follow traditional Rider-Waite symbolism to a large degree, and yet adding in something a little bit different, novel and interesting because of the fact that they do represent Greek myths. For example, here we have the Oracle of Delphi as the High Priestess. As you can see, the suit elements are shown in one corner, as well as the number. This is one of the things that I feel less happy about with this deck, that the suit elements aren't actually shown. For example, here we have the Two of Cups, and this card fits quite nicely with traditional meanings in the sense that here we see Calais and Zetes, who are twins, fighting harpies. So it's about partnership, working together. They really know one another very well, being twins. And yet, as the Two of Cups, what stands out is the fact that they're holding two swords. And that's something which I find a little bit difficult with some of these cards. However, overall, I think that they add nice additional meanings through the myths, and at least the suit element and number are quite clear. I have a few other minor gripes with some of the cards. For example, from a feminist perspective, I'm not sure about using Athena judging Orestes for justice when this was a case where matriarchal law gave way to patriarchal law, so that's not one of my personal favourites. And likewise, Athena as the Empress doesn't really work for me because Athena is very warrior-like and masculine, whereas I see the Empress as being very, very feminine, creative, nurturing. However, I think that there's a lot of quirkiness in these images, and that it is a deck which can be quite easily read without necessarily knowing too much about the mythology that's behind it, though of course that does add in a layer of depth, shall we say. Some of the cards that I think don't work quite as well would include, for example, the Ace of Swords as Achilles being dipped so that he is invulnerable. And to me that doesn't speak very much of ideas and truths. It's more about strength, which isn't necessarily what I see in the Swords cards. I also have a little bit of trouble with the Two and Three of Wands. The Two of Wands represents King Aegeus, and he is waiting for someone to return, Theseus. So although the imagery matches the Rider-Waite idea of, a man standing in a fortress or whatever looking out, it also has that sort of element of the Three of Wands of waiting for your ships to come in. Whereas the Three of Wands represents Jason and the Argonauts about to set off. So it has that idea of partnership, bringing together different people and setting out and putting work into a project. But I find the cards a little bit difficult in that sense. As I say though, there are a lot of very interesting images that I think work really well. One of the areas that I'm also not quite so sure about is some of the court cards. For example, for the King of Pentacles, we have Cadmus sowing dragon's teeth to gain warriors. I suppose you could see that as being about multiplying your resources, but it seems a little bit warlike for the King of Pentacles, who I associate more with being a homebody, having authority but over the material realm rather than being a warrior. So too, the Page of Swords represents Antigone burying her brother against the wishes of King Creon, and the meaning given for this is vigilance and discretion. Now, neither those key words nor the idea of, well, I suppose the idea of going against somebody's wishes and perhaps doing something behind their back would suit the Page of Swords, but the image itself doesn't really give me that feel, and likewise she's holding a cup as well as a dagger, which makes it a little bit confusing. The Queen of Cups is Helen, who certainly represents that depth of emotion and love and beauty as well that I would associate with the Queen of Cups. However, this is her being rescued by her husband Menelaus, and the key words include intuition and sensitivity, which are not things that I would really associate with Helen, though they are obviously the positive side of the Queen of Cups. So too, the Knight of Pentacles represents Actaeon, who is being turned on by his own hounds after they have been fooled by Artemis. So this perhaps speaks more to the opposite of the card, because it's about loyalty, and here loyal hounds are being turned against their master. So it feels a little bit strange, perhaps a little bit of a reach, and I might have trouble with this card in a reading, and even just the visual imagery is not really what I would associate with the Knight of Pentacles. And so too with the Knight of Cups. This is Bellerophon riding Pegasus to attack the Chimera. And once again, I see the Knight of Cups as being much more of a lover than a fighter. However, there are some court cards which I think work extremely well. For example, the Page of Cups as Narcissus. And overall, as I say, I think the mythology that's been chosen adds a lot to the depth of imagery in the cards. I also like the fact that each card in itself points to a little section of a historical tale. For example, here in the Ace of Pentacles, we have the Golden Fleece that Jason and the Argonauts chased after, yet we already had Jason and the Argonauts setting sail in the Three of Wands. And likewise, we see Jason and the Argonauts again in the Knight of Wands. So stories which do have a lot of depth keep coming back one way or another, but they're not limited to a particular suit. There are a few images or cards which I think work particularly well. For example, Cassandra in the Nine of Swords having nightmares that she sees the future and people don't believe her. I like the variety and perspective that is offered by this deck. For example, here in the Nine of Wands, we have the Hellhound Cerberus guarding the underworld. And so here it isn't really the human who is the guard, but rather perhaps the person trying to get past the vigilant guard of the dog. So too in the Hierophant, here we have a blind seer, but instead of having disciples, he's actually speaking to a king. So the perspective is somewhat different while the meaning stays very much the same, but that can perhaps open out our vision of this card and its possible meanings. Here we have the Tower, and this is Pandora opening the box of all the evils of the world. So very much a Tower kind of moment, releasing something catastrophic and causing a huge change in perspective and a change in the way of life. I really like Heracles fighting the Hydra for the Seven of Wands. I think that fits very well. Though once again here we have him holding a sword as well as a wand, and the Hydra has 9 heads. Mike has stuck to that because that's, what it says in the myth. So the 7 wands, once again, it's a little bit confusing. For added perspective, once again, in the Wheel of Fortune, we have Odysseus solving the Sphinx's riddle. So he's playing a hand in his own fortune, which I like. For the 9 of Cups, we have Midas and his golden touch, and he's very happy about it, self-satisfied and smug, hasn't yet realised the downside. In the 8 of Cups, we have Daedalus and his son flying away from prison, so it's that need to move away and seek higher truths, and yet we don't yet see the fact that this doesn't always work out, adding another layer of meaning to the card. In the 7 of Pentacles, we once again have Heracles, having completed his 11th task, so he still has one more to do before he finishes the project. A lot of hard work gone in, but you still have to push on. And another of the court cards which I find interesting is the Queen of Pentacles. This is Io, who has been turned into a cow, and obviously cows do very much represent that mothering, nurturing, abundant side of the Queen of Pentacles. Adding in perspective, the 3 of Swords shows Agamemnon being forced to sacrifice his daughter, a different kind of heartache to what we often think about. The 10 of Wands is Daedalus, forever pushing his rock up a hill. And I like the fact that in the 6 of Pentacles, it's not just about giving material things, but also about giving healing in this case. In the Hanged Man, we see Odysseus, who comes up quite often, which should be no surprise given how important he is in Greek mythology. This time he's fighting off the sirens by tying himself to a mast so that he can't follow their siren song. So the idea of hanging oneself a little bit differently portrayed, and yet there is still success, sacrifice and learning here. And finally, an interesting take on the 6 of Swords, where it is crossing the river Styx to the underworld. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this deck, and I love the colours and the variety in this deck. I hope you found this review helpful and that you'll come back again soon. In the meantime, please listen to your own inner whispers.